Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, November 14th, 2024. Time to get going again. It's me here in the trusty Coldie's lozenge and working through the cold once again. I think it's kind of subsiding, but you know, these things linger for a little while. Like, I don't know, I guess the guy we can no longer call the former guy. I was thinking about this today, just wondering whether I would have rather have had him just win re-election the first time so we would be done with him now, although who knows whether we would be done with him now, right? I mean, he might just declare himself president for life and then he would be able to hang around, or was it better to have the interregnum of the Biden administration? And of course, lots of good things happened, and it was nice to have 4 normal years, and I don't know if we would have survived 8 in a row of the Trump chaos and craziness. So I'm just saying, I'm just saying I wish he was gone. How about that? And that's about all there is to it. And then if I sit and think about it for a little while and what that actually means, you know, the why don't you justism goes away. And we realize, all right, well, we were fortunate to have this breather, and there's 2 months left of it. And of course, he's doing everything he can to shock us out of our skin and our breath. During those 2 months, more appointments made. You know, we had the batch of appointments that came through in the first couple of days, and, you know, head in hands, oh my God, I can't believe these idiots are going to be in charge of these various things, or these destructive forces. And, well, it got worse yesterday. So let's see, I think the less bad of the 2 shockers from yesterday, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, less shocking of the 2, but I don't know about less bad. I mean, this is just one of those situations we've been threatened with for the entirety of the Trump era, realizing that he would simply eventually get around to just appointing people to national security jobs who would just give away the store. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, not to be trusted with the things that we ordinarily trust only, in many cases, to the Director of National Intelligence. And I have a feeling that embassy staff everywhere really, because everybody is likely to turn over, not just the usual plum appointments that go to politicals, big donors, etc., for cushy jobs, but probably everywhere. Embassy staff probably getting instructions from the Department of State now, and I guess the CIA now as well, about what not to leave behind for the eyes of not local hostile forces, but the next round of representation by the Foreign Service of the United States. Most of the people, ordinarily, you say, well, they're going to be a stable crew of career Foreign Service diplomats, but of course, that may not be the case anymore either because of Schedule F, etc. But certainly these ambassadors, in many places, I guess anywhere that Trump or his team get wind that there might be juicy details that they either can use against Democrats or sell to a foreign power or whatever, they will be scouring the files for those things and having their ambassadors stuff them in their pockets and take them home. So I guess there's a lot of burn notices, I would guess, going out to, you'll start to see smoke billowing out of the U.S. Embassy, usually a sign of what happens right before evacuation from the country. But in this case, it is burning state secrets lest they fall into the hands of the next president of the United States, which is pretty amazing. So there you are, Tulsi Gabbard. And then, of course, the big shocker of the day for Attorney General, and we had all been warned that it might be someone as bad as Eileen Cannon, who has been a judge for 15 minutes, but did Trump the favor that he needed in the courtroom down there in, Fort Pierce? Is that where they are? Anyway, no, it was worse. It was Matt Gaetz, who's been in Congress for 30 minutes, but made a nuisance of himself the whole time, and of course is, on again, off again with federal underage sex trafficking charges. You know how it goes. And whatever, now he's the chief law enforcement officer, and I think somehow that's a great victory for QAnon. Well, so, I can't explain exactly why that is. Plenty of people have picked up the pens to describe this stuff. We're 2 days into the Pete Hegseth nomination now, so lots more writing coming out about him. And I guess the news item most worth mentioning about the Matt Gaetz nomination is that, well, unlike I think the others who are in Congress, and we mentioned yesterday that Republicans in the House were getting concerned that Trump was just naming too many House members to his cabinet and taking them out of play in a House that's so narrowly divided, and this is another one. And yeah, their seats are probably safe, but then again, there's special elections. And by the way, down in Florida, there's two coming up now. One is for, what's the other guy's name? Waltz. And the other, or I don't know, I forget what, I think I got it wrong there. But at any rate, he and Gaetz both, what a combination, will be vacating their seats, and there'll need to be special elections. And Ron DeSantis in particular has been has been anxious and enthusiastic about playing games with those special elections. When a Democrat, not that we expect any to go into the cabinet, but when a Democratic seat is vacated in Florida, he drags his feet and leaves the district unrepresented for months on end before he calls a special election. When Republicans leave, and it's a Republican district and a Republican is expected to be returned to office, he sprints through the process and calls a special election right away, which is fine. I mean, it's his prerogative to a certain extent. I don't know how long he can really get away with it. And I think he's been sued over the amount of time he's delayed Democratic special elections. But honestly, I don't know. I think maybe the sooner the better for Republican special elections. If there are going to be any surprises at all, thanks to special election, low turnout, and Dobbs effect and backlash against what just happened in the last election, it's probably sooner rather than later. So to me, I think the surprises come sooner, if they come at all, and they would be shocking surprises, to be sure, in some of these districts. But Matt Gaetz, not only in a hurry to get where he's going, but in a hurry to get out of where he's leaving. Unlike the others, he's already resigned his seat, which is ordinarily a bad place, especially when, they got some reaction shots from Republican senators. What do you think about having to vote on Matt Gaetz as Attorney General? And even some of the usual suspects for the Trumpy side were kind of taken aback and wanted to, hustle out of there without answering. But the news story here is that he resigned right away, which is, again, unusual, but also explicable only, I guess, in one way. He's about 3 days from the release of the Ethics Committee report, the rejuvenated Ethics Committee report against him. They decided, of course, to reopen the case, the sex trafficking allegations against him, and investigate it. This is what drove him to push Kevin McCarthy out of office, but the report has nonetheless been generated, and I'm starting to hear that if he leaves, the Ethics Committee may lose its jurisdiction over him and might end up not releasing that report. Hey, he's not a member of Congress. We've got no business talking smack about him now. If he had been here, we would have done it, but he has left. So, spectacular gaming of the situation. Greg Dworkin is here. The ethics report on him is clean. So you're in good shape. Greg, let's begin. Good morning.
Yeah, the fact that Abby authored it had nothing to do with, how I skated by.
All right. Well, you got to take your friends where you can find them. But it's a clean bill of health, complete with a paw print at the bottom.
Right, exactly. So there's a couple of things that I think are very much worth mentioning here, big picture style.
All right.
First of all, if you start out, what you do is you give the country, the press, whatever, even your own Republican Party, you give them some normies. So you talk about, Marco Rubio, little Marco as Secretary of State, and Susie Wiles as Chief of Staff. And, oh, by the way, she's a woman, glass ceiling, yay for me, yada, yada, I'm just wonderful. And then you save your big three oh my gods for a couple of days later. And the first was Pete Hegseth. We got to do him again.
Okay.
Information on him. And then, of course, as you mentioned, Tulsi Gabbard and Matt Gaetz as the dessert.
Yeah, they're not great.
So Pete Hegseth as secretary, I don't know if any of the three are going to wind up getting confirmed. Turns out Donald Trump elevated the director of national intelligence to a cabinet position, so now it's subject to confirmation by the Senate.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Well, it is. I mean, he could do an interim.
Yes.
But I'm not sure that's going to fly. Again, that's the significance of having John Thune running the place.
Yes. Also sitting on a 2-vote margin.
And not Skeletor, not Rick Scott.
Yeah. I mean, for now, this is more Trump chaos. We don't know how long Thune lasts. He won by a razor-thin margin. Not the kind of guy that you generally think of as consolidating power behind him once he's done, once he's across the line. But, maybe he's learned that skill. But I hear there are conservatives already looking for, how can we find 3 votes to get rid of him?
The issue here really, again, if you want to look at a 50,000-foot level.
All right.
Is you can take a look at the Trump administration and say they're going to do everything bad we knew they were going to do, particularly with mass deportation. The other side of the coin is they're incredibly stupid and incompetent and overreach all the time. So it's not like the guardrails are going to protect us. Their own stupidity and incompetence may wind up protecting us.
It
is unclear
happen.
To me that anybody would ever vote for Matt Gaetz if they didn't have to.
Right.
In the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be more than 3 votes. The 3 I would think of is Murkowski, Collins, and Bill Cassidy, but there might be others.
Yes. Well, that's, I think, probably the major.
Hate him.
They do, and they're very upset. And what they want more than anything, what they really might want is, I hope he's rejected outright and we get a serious nominee instead. But what they really want at bottom, at least don't make me vote. I don't want to make an early vote against Trump, and I don't want to vote for that guy.
Just that. Don't make me talk about it. I mean,
yeah.
What you got with Pete Hegseth when he was nominated is, who the hell is he? What you got with Matt Gaetz being nominated, oh my God, is I know exactly who the hell he is.
Oh no. Yeah, that was a big downer for them.
And Gabbard, for anybody who's still a traditional Republican hawk, that's like putting Putin in that spot. I just don't know if it flies. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly the most likely to find Republican opposition in any vote that might get held, and we're not sure whether there will be one.
Right. I mean, I could see somebody standing up and saying, I'm voting against her. I'd rather have Jill Stein, and let me tell you about Jill Stein.
And by the way, she's already in Moscow, so, we saved on gas.
But the reason I wanted to start with Pete Hegseth, the guy that nobody knows, the Fox News host, who has no business running a giant bureaucracy, he's not a governor, doesn't have executive experience,
won't need an executive washroom key, though.
When I was on Twitter for years, I cultivated not only political lists, but other interests.
You did.
And one of my other interests was medieval history.
Oh.
So I had a whole list of medieval historians that I follow. And when a medieval historian writes an article and tells you the bad thing about being a Crusader historian is when I feel obligated to write an article, it's going to be bad.
Yeah,
and so people I know,
something new has happened.
Medieval historians I know put together this article on the Bulwark called "What's the Deal with Pete Hegseth's Crusader Tattoos?"
Yeah, what is the deal with that guy, and how did he not get infected?
He's a white supremacist is the deal. If it's too long, you don't want to read it. But the fact of the matter is that, he is, wearing tattoos. I sent you a picture of it, which is right below the first article, so you could see the tattoo. But it's basically a giant Maltese cross within each of the four quadrants another cross.
Yeah.
Within that, there's probably other crosses. It's like
sure.
But it's called the Jerusalem Cross, and it led to his dismissal from guard duty during Biden's inauguration because his unit leaders deemed it evidence of him being an extremist and potential threat. This is the guy who was nominated for Secretary of Defense.
Well, right. If you've committed a crime, you are now the head of the investigative branch that was charging you.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Terrific.
all of those things.
Come back.
They're important.
Okay.
Here we go. Had to go get Abby.
Hi, Abby.
But the symbol's not only religious, it always has carried a political valence. The Jerusalem cross was used as the emblem of the Kingdom of Jerusalem from the late 13th century onwards. You may have seen it in Ridley Scott's The Kingdom of Heaven in 2005. It's made its way into a variety of contemporary far-right Templar myths. And all of that is not mentioned by Hegseth in terms of why he was discriminated against. And it's not the only ideologically charged tattoo that he has.
Let me see this thing again. Isn't that also, well, maybe it's not the exact same design, but isn't that also the flag of the country of Georgia, more or less?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, it's damn close.
I mean, it's got historical reference, so, many people may use it in a more innocent way.
So he's just saying, I love Georgia. Oh, this is, and maybe I asked AI, I want to get the flag of the state of Georgia tattooed on me, and AI chatbot told me this one, and I guess I was just wrong.
Well, so this article starts out, and by the way, it's by Thomas Lecoq and Annika Brockschmidt.
Wow.
And it says, when Donald Trump named Pete Hegseth, longtime host of a weekend morning Fox News show, as his first choice to become Secretary of Defense, scholars of the history of the Crusades started getting calls from journalists. Most academics would welcome any opportunity, but no Crusades historian wants to be called upon to explain something about contemporary politics.
Yeah, I guess not.
And so,
rough time, the Crusades.
Here you go. No, he said a lot of inflammatory things.
I'm sure.
Hegseth's right arm is covered from top to bottom, and most of the images draw from Revolution-era propaganda. QAnon stuff. 3 of these are clearly visible in the cover photo for one of his books, American Crusade, the year 1775, in Roman numerals. We the People in stylized colonial script.
Oh, yes,
and an American flag with a modified M4 superimposed over the lower bars. And Ben Franklin's famous Joiner Dark cartoon, the chopped up snake, on the underside of his forearm. On his shoulder, he has the insignia of the 187th Infantry Regiment in which he served. That's fine. His elbow is decorated with a circle of stars, and the crook of his arm features a pair of crossed muskets. Then he's got Kagro, a Catholic symbol with roots that go back to the dawn of Christendom. The name of Jesus is rendered in Hebrew across his elbow.
Well,
and then the tattoos that have made historians of the Crusades depressingly relevant. A sword embedded in a cross on Hegseth's inner forearm, representing Matthew 10:34, the verse wherein Christ says, "I have not come to bring peace but a sword." And most disturbing of all, a Gothic inscription on his bicep that says Deus Vult, which is Latin for God wills it. During the First Crusade, it was raised as a battle cry, and this is its univocal origin and context, which Hegseth knows well.
Great.
It's the rallying cry of Christian knights as they march to Jerusalem. See you on the battlefield. Together with God's help, we will save America. Deus Vult, that's what he wrote in his book. And by the way, have I mentioned his book is titled American Crusade? This is the guy he wants as Secretary of Defense.
Well, Secretary of Offense, whatever. Whichever.
So, if he's going to screw the generals and get rid of the woke ones and the black ones and the Latino ones and just put in white Christian nationalists, which is to say he replaces a few because some are already there, that is a prescription for civil war.
Yeah, and
which general are you going to follow?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good question. If any of them follow him, that creates more of a problem. On the other hand, if it's just I'm going to execute all these generals and they say, oh, actually, we have an army.
I'm just saying, you step back and say, oh, my God, Matt Gaetz. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, Pete Hegseth.
Yeah, well, Pete Hegseth could cause
Gaetz
that problem.
Quantity. He's just, he's a crook. He's a
that was a shock value.
A sleaze, shock value. We understand what he wants to do. He wants to weaponize DOJ. He wants to get rid of any charges against January 6 people and start instituting charges against anybody who worked for Biden. I get all of that.
Yes.
It's understandable. But to me, what Pete Hegseth wants to do at Department of Defense is more insidious and potentially just as dangerous. I can't say more dangerous.
I think that's true. Certainly, by comparison to Matt Gaetz, as you pointed out. Tulsi Gabbard, I think, has a lower profile challenge to the most insidious, just in terms of like, well, here's the key to the vault with all the stuff that you don't want Putin to have, and here's Putin's phone number. I don't know what happens
next. But the point
next.
It's the big three. They go together. Yeah. All of them are awful. God, awful. Terribly awful.
Yes. By the way, Pete
Hegseth belongs with those other two.
You're right. That's true. He also has, by the way, a Tasmanian devil tattoo on his ankle. That was the first one. It was very cute and kids loved it, but yeah, then he went dark.
Yeah, well, the
it's
problem
not true. He doesn't have that. I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe he does.
The problem is the Wile E. Coyote on his back.
Yeah, right. Now,
I mean, if he were Roadrunner, it'd be a good guy. But, no.
Yeah, right. So,
and then across his forehead, he's got Acme.
And Hi Hitler. Remember that guy that showed up in court with he had Hi Hitler tattooed on his forehead, having come to the understanding that that's what the Nazis were saying, not Heil, but Hi.
Hello, Hitler.
Yeah, how's it going?
Yeah.
Right. So, that's a mistake. Hegseth, that's a good point. People might have thought he was less disastrous, shocking, or dangerous to the country than these other two, and I think you're right. He is. It's a tie. You're all winners. Everybody gets a participation trophy.
Right. So if you want to be alarmed, then of course there's dog shooting Kristi Noem at
shooting. Yes.
At DHS. Because
what did you say?
She will allow anything that Thomas Homan wants to do in terms of mass deportations.
Yes.
Which at the moment
are
she
would do anything.
Seemingly popular in the polls.
Yeah.
Are you for mass deportation? Like, yes, 52, no, 39. I don't know what that means. I don't think the people who are saying yes know what that means.
Some of the people who are saying yes are going to be deported. But yeah. Right. That's just, I don't know. He said that, and then I heard he won, so I guess it's popular. So me too. I'm in on it. There's a little bit of that.
As long as they don't include me, I don't want illegals here.
Yeah. Even though I am one, but I'm a good one.
I have to mention by saying illegals.
Yeah. Yes.
There's a whole argument about language and woke language and what that means and how that lost the election for Harris, none of which is true, all of which is garbage. But there is a legitimate discussion to have about language police.
All right.
And this goes, we had this discussion long ago, long before this election.
Probably when it first started happening.
And who wants to use it and who doesn't want to use it. And if normal people don't want to use it, don't use it.
Yeah, I get you. Even normal people is a loaded term. But yeah, I think we have had this discussion even well before that. The limits of, I guess what they used to derisively just call PC, where it was, if it's helping you
just give it up. It's not.
I guess so.
Worth the fight.
If it's helping you be considerate of others and build a larger coalition, terrific.
If it makes it so that they're going to close your college down, maybe you should reconsider how wonderful it is.
That could be an issue. And if it's destructive of cooperative coalitions where you're policing people who are on your side and helping you and making it difficult or impossible for them to cooperate with you, that may be problematic as well.
Yes, exactly right. I've seen some conservatives bring this up, some never Trump conservatives bring this up.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue against this because some of this is just stupid. And so why do people get mad when you say illegals? Well, and the reason I bring this up is on the border,
that one I
that's the language that people use.
That is true. And
you can't fight nature. You can't fight the tides. You can't fight, the market, the invisible. This is the language people use.
Yeah.
You may think it's offensive.
Well,
it's like 80% of people use it. So what are you going to do with that? And who's using it? People who came here legally.
Yeah.
They're the ones that use the term illegal. I'm not having this fight.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I at least will. I still have room for at least like the discussion of, oh, okay, well, why is that problematic, and
totally,
et cetera.
I'm totally with that.
Got it.
I try not to use it myself.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm not fighting people over it.
You should. Well, we should at least say let's not ignite those fights if somebody either uses it in a quotation or in passing, or then says, well, I know exactly. that's the offensive thing, but this is the way people are talking about it. Well, all right, but go fight the other guys first, and then we all say, duly noted, right, fight the people who are doing the deportation.
I got a bunch of other terms I will fight because they're totally offensive.
Okay.
And we've used some of them on this show.
I have one. I have a new sound effect.
Sometimes by mistake because I'm old, sometimes because I think in the context it belonged, but it's still offensive. Those are words worth fighting over. And Dan Balls. Some of the other ones.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Not so much. So pick and choose your battles. That's all I'm saying.
Got it. I have a new one that I'm holding. I'm sure the name will come up, and then I'll remember to use it, and we'll all have fun with it. But I'm not going to reveal it until the time is right.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Ooh, edge of the seat. Okay. You may proceed, sir.
Can you remember the name of the non-entity, I think it was North Carolina congressman in a wheelchair who was obnoxious and then left?
Yes. Madison Cawthorn. But when you said, can you remember, I immediately said, nope, I can't. And I blanked. and Madison Cawthorn.
Right. What cabinet level position is he going to be appointed to? Secretary.
I don't know what's left. I don't know if he needs rescuing or not.
It doesn't matter. I mean, the point is Trump wants to have these battles.
I
see. Wants to stick it in your face.
Yeah, maybe. Although I have seen people start asking questions. Hey, is RFK still getting a job, or is he just done with that guy?
He's probably just done with that guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe Madison Cawthorn,
after the break.
Okay. Sure. We'll allow that. And something. All right. Well, hopefully we'll get a chance during today's broadcast to debut the new sound effect. But in the next couple of days, we'll roll it out. And we'll be right back after this. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. And golly. All right, I've just been examining the Pete Hegseth tattoos to the extent that I can from this photo during it. I do not know how he avoided getting those infected. They're large. And if he doesn't wash his hands, maybe he tattooed clean skin tone on his hands. So it looks like they're washed all the time. I don't know. I suspect he was lying about that, but okay. All right, Greg. So what else is new with these
What else is new? I'll tell you what's new.
Yeah. All right. What?
All right. Justice just sent me this. He thought I should know. Yeah. The Onion buys Alex Jones Infowars at auction.
Oh, I heard that was
from the Sandy Hook families. They now own his network.
Well, all right. That's pretty amazing.
That's pretty cool.
I saw that it was up for auction.
It doesn't make up for the terrible 3 at the cabinet level, but that's pretty good news.
That is good news, and I didn't know that was really in the offing, although I heard it was being auctioned, And early on when they announced the auction, I heard somebody say, hey, the Onion should buy it, or we should buy it Onion style, like put together a bidding group. But then as of yesterday, I had seen that there was some, like a guy who's a frequent guest on the old Alex Jones show had put together a bid and was, I guess, favored to win this thing so that it would continue, just not with Alex Jones, or at least not his name on it. But this is much better. And, wow, I wonder what they're going to do with it. And I wish I knew the guys who own the Onion.
Robbie Parker, one of the Sandy Hook family members whose daughter Emily was killed in the 2012 shooting.
Yeah.
Said in a statement provided by his lawyers, the dissolution of Alex Jones's assets and the death of InfoWars is the justice we've long awaited and fought for. The sale price was not immediately disclosed.
I'm sure they care less about that.
Alex Jones says he's going to file legal challenges to stop the sale.
Good idea. Yeah, all right. So go ahead. I wish I knew the Onion guys. I would ask them to give me the show.
Yeah, it's not immediately clear what the Onion plan to do with the platform.
Yeah.
Because they also
give it to me.
Acquired the social media accounts and the video archive.
Wow. Well, that's
hopefully they'll destroy in a very spectacular fashion.
Yeah, or else that would be something to what they should do with it is they should sell it for 10 cents to Andrew Kaczynski.
Oh, that would be cool.
Right? Somebody who would professionally scour the archives for the worst stuff.
Yeah.
So they should do that.
Yeah, I think just give it to CNN or whatever.
Yeah, and then. A better idea would be have me
Kaczynski personally responsible, but let the K-file just go over it.
Right. I think that's what would eventually happen. I was going to suggest perhaps you give it to me and I give it to them and they give me $10 million. That would be good. Also, I don't know. I can't think of the benefit of that to the Onion.
Anyway,
but it's the Onion. It would just be funny
because we should have something good to say, not just
that is good. Say. That is exciting news. And
thank you, Justice. So let's move on to the Bulwark, where Mark Caputo is writing about another jerk. His name is Matt Gaetz. And as you probably know, as many of you probably know, there's a left-leaning journalist named Matt Gaetz.
That guy, he's a child predator.
Is, who's on Twitter, who is often mistaken for Matt Gaetz.
Oh, oops, yes.
Just like Michael Cohen, the writer, is often mistaken for Michael Cohen, the fixer.
Yeah, although that's a little easier to understand. And Matt Gaetz
yesterday just tweeted, "Oh my God, my life is over."
It's just beginning, Matt.
It's just beginning. So this is Mark Caputo. Donald Trump is dead serious about getting Matt Gaetz to DOJ. The president-elect wants the fight, believing the congressman will investigate the investigators and magify the Justice Department, which is true. That's what we expect. You're right that Gaetz is also trying to get out of his own issues, one of which is, as you mentioned, an ethics committee that may not have jurisdiction if he's not there anymore. So it would be a win-win, which is to say he's out of a job he doesn't want and nobody can investigate him because now he's out of the job. It would be a win for us because he's out of Congress. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't get confirmed, if he quits Congress but doesn't get confirmed, that'd be great. In other words, he has to quit quickly so that Ron DeSantis, who's currently out of the country, can have the headache of trying to fight MAGA as to who his replacement is. But there has to be a replacement election. I think it's going to take at least 45 days, starting when DeSantis gets back. Unlike senators, you don't appoint Congress people. Those of you who are longtime listeners know this. So you have to have a special election according to rules of individual states, which all differ, which all are different from each other. It's just not quick. It's not a quick process. And that being the case, what we want is for Gaetz to resign and then not be confirmed so that he's out of all jobs.
That would be fine. I mean, he'd land, but who cares? It's not our problem to keep him out of work. We just don't want him to have this work.
Right.
All right. Well, we sit and wait and see, and I don't know.
So the advisor said none of the attorneys we looked at had what Trump wanted, and they didn't talk like Gaetz. Everybody else looked at the attorney general as if they were applying for a judicial appointment. Gaetz was the only one who said, and this is a quote, I'll go over there and start cutting fucking heads.
Oh, hey, no, you're not supposed to be able to say that.
Now,
as attorney general, I mean.
And
you can say whatever you
the
want.
Bulwark has a little footnote that says the Bulwark doesn't believe in cutting heads, but we will cover it journalistically.
See, that's how you have to do it.
Yes. In Trump's mind, there's no more important post than Attorney General, both because of the sheer number of federal investigations and indictments he's weathered, and his conviction that he was let down by feckless or non-loyal attorney generals. He wants attorney generals like Hitler had, I suppose. In choosing Gaetz,
Never thought about Hitler's
Trump
attorney general.
signaled just how much he trusts the 42-year-old from Florida's first congressional district at the western edge of the state's panhandle. Can you tell Mark Caputo's from Florida?
Yeah, all right. Yeah,
I would not think of describing Gaetz as the 42-year-old from Florida's first congressional district at the western edge of the state's panhandle as my first approach for reminding people of Gaetz.
Right. Naked guy at a drunk party. Oh, and he's in Congress.
So the reason he wrote this article is that he said the pick was so audacious that it prompted immediate speculation that Gaetz was actually playing the role of a sacrificial lamb to give Republicans a nominee to tank so they could get all the other ones. But those familiar with Trump's thinking saying, no, he wants Gaetz.
Yeah, he probably does. He struck me as another one of the things that maybe the kids did on their way out the door to whatever they're doing next. Like J.D. Vance. You should be your VP.
More colorful language coming.
Oh, dear.
From the article. You ready?
Not really, but okay.
So the reaction to the Gaetz nomination inside the Justice Department was one of shell shock. One government lawyer wrote the Bulwark, holy fucking shit. And what
I censored it.
That's a quote, and that's what government officials are saying about the Gaetz nomination.
Right.
On the Hill, it wasn't more subdued.
No, probably not.
I was shocked by the announcement, said Susan Collins. She didn't say anything.
Oh.
Troubled even. This shows why the advice and consent process is so important, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions raised at his hearing.
Yes.
Obviously, the president has the right to nominate whoever he wishes, but I'm certain
obviously
there'll be questions at this hearing.
Yes.
And John Cornyn said Gaetz has his work cut out for him.
That was kind.
He was asked about the alleged sex crimes Gaetz is accused of.
Yeah.
And Cornyn, a former judge, by the way,
said,
well, that might come up at the hearing.
Yeah. Right.
That doesn't sound to me like he's on a glide path to success there.
No.
I'm just saying.
There
it is.
That was the reaction. Thank you, Mr. Cornyn. Senator, thank you.
That was Thune. And he's going to be the majority leader.
Yeah, right. Or at least temporarily anyway. So there we have it. Lots of good sound effects.
Now, is that guaranteed that he won't be confirmed? Of course not. In this era, you can't do any of that. But I will say that there is a theory going around which I tend to subscribe to.
Okay.
That says, that Trump, by the public, the voting public, for whatever reason, is seen as a celebrity and a different figure than the rest of the Republican Party, and not really seen as a Republican.
Oh, okay.
The flip side of that is that Kari Lake and all the other people who act like Trump don't get elected.
That seems true.
They fail.
Yeah.
And so Matt Gaetz may well fail, and the rest of them may well fail because they're not Trump. Not to give him, inordinate power, but the others aren't Trump, and they can't get away with the crap he pulls.
That's certainly been the case in a number of instances. Yes. So,
and you can't. Trump wants it. Yeah. Well, Trump wanted Rick Scott. How'd that go?
Right. Yeah. I mean, he also is famous for heavily endorsing somebody and having them lose right in front of him, and then coming back and saying, I have a 100% win streak.
Yeah, because I endorsed two other people at the same time, and so
and they lost also,
that guy
and I'm
lost.
lying.
The guy running against him, who I also endorsed, won. So I'm undefeated.
Right. He's done that.
Okay. Right? And so people fall for it because he's a con man, and people are marks.
Yes.
Now the Senate. Less marky than others, sort of, kind of, sometimes.
All right.
But, they know what's going on. They're not stupid, but sometimes they go along with it for their own reasons. There's plenty of reasons not to go along with this from their point of view, including the fact that they don't want to spend the next 4 years going, well, I didn't see that
Yeah, I haven't seen that tweet. I know.
I didn't see Matt Gaetz be appointed. I didn't know it. What? He got appointment? Who said so? I have to sneak into this elevator here.
Okay.
Let me talk to my dead phone. Stop asking me questions.
Right. Basically.
So this is David French writing in the New York Times.
Ooh la la.
Still in our second of our third bad triumvirate. We have Diablo, Baal, and Mephisto, and which one you want to pick.
Okay.
They're all bad. Throughout the presidential campaign, I noticed that Trump supporters tended to fall into one of two camps, David French says. The first camp, core MAGA, heard Donald Trump's wild rhetoric, including his vows to punish his political enemies, loved every bit of it. They voted for Trump because they think that's what he's going to do. But there's a different camp, normie Republicans, that have an entirely different view. They didn't believe Trump's words. They roll their eyes. They say, stop clutching your pearls. This is just Trump being Trump. He's more bark than bite. And then he picks Gaetz and Hegseth and Gabbard.
Yeah. Oof.
He is going to govern with a sense of vengeance, and personal loyalty really is the coin of the realm. And Gaetz' nomination is particularly dreadful. He isn't just the least qualified attorney general in American history. I was thinking Harriet Miers. I have to go look up just why she was so bad, but,
she just wasn't, a top-level government lawyer for 20 years, which is what usually... But okay.
But also broke the law herself in domestic hiring.
Yeah,
but,
probably true.
It's just the attorney general. What difference does that make?
Yeah.
Look at John Mitchell.
Right.
And to me, it's not Alberto Gonzalez. It's John Mitchell is the standard of dreadful attorney generals. That happens. I'm not a lawyer. That's my own view. He's there for politics, and he was terrible, and he tried to enable Nixon, and it didn't work that well, but he was just awful. Anybody worse than him is the worst attorney general in American history, and I
guess that's true.
Gaetz would probably fit the bill.
Yeah, he would. He hasn't done it yet. Bill Barr, also terrible. I mean,
terrible, but a different kind of terrible.
Yes.
Far more competent than John Mitchell was. The trouble is, and more qualified than Mitchell was, unfortunately, because he did a lot of bad things because he was qualified. Gaetz, as David French points out, barely practiced law before running for elected office, has served mainly as a MAGA gadfly in Congress, but, by the way, he's also remarkably dishonest and depraved.
Oh, just as an added bonus.
So he's got that going for him, too.
Yeah, I mean, really, I think he graduated from law school, and I think he may have practiced for 2 years while he was getting ready to run for state legislature, and that was it. He is a lawyer, and as I've seen in the last couple of hours, I guess he's got a weird crew of people who ordinarily you wouldn't think of as supporting him, and I don't even know whether you could really say they do support him, but they're pointing out he's quirky. He has taken some positions that people on our side of the political spectrum might say, okay, too, but 99% of it is horrific and awful.
Right. So French ends by saying, listen, no matter what happens next, Gaetz' nomination is reaffirmation. Trump, who tried to overthrow an American election, hasn't matured, hasn't evolved, hasn't grown. He is who he is, and it shouldn't surprise anybody. He nominated a vengeful loyalist to lead the most powerful law enforcement agency in the United States. So
yes.
Then we have Hegseth, and we have Matt Gaetz covered. This one is from Mother Jones. Tulsi Gabbard is a uniquely bad choice for Director of National Intelligence.
Uniquely.
So I just want to point out each one has their own claim to fame for being the worst.
Yeah, well, good. I like a good competition.
The president-elect's selection of Susie Wiles as his chief of staff, Florida Senator Marco Rubio as Secretary of State nominee, suggested a step toward GOP convention, then Tulsi Gabbard, along with Gaetz and Hegseth. It's interesting. Everybody in analyzing one of the three feels obligated to mention, by the way, these other two are also terrible.
Yes. So it's good validation, your theory. Certainly, it's a three-way tie. You're right.
Trump plans to put Gabbard, a dabbler in conspiracy theories, in a job overseeing 18 spy agencies with responsibility for preparing the president's daily intelligence briefing. Gabbard did not respond to inquiries.
Right. Well, he won't.
Along the way, by the way, Gabbard has demonstrated excessive credulity about claims of autocrats hostile to the U.S. She drew fire from meeting with Bashar al-Assad during a secret trip to Syria. She said she was skeptical of U.S. intelligence findings that led Secretary of State Rex Tillerson to say U.S. officials had a very high level of confidence that chemical weapon attacks killed dozens of people in Syria.
Right.
Her position aligns with arguments from Russian officials and again bolstered Russian propaganda in 2022 when she tweeted a video repeating Kremlin claims that U.S.-funded labs in Ukraine were developing biological weapons.
Right. The germs that Pete Hegseth doesn't believe in.
Gabbard defended her various statements saying, I'm here to help prevent World War III.
Me too.
But she,
Aren't we all?
in doing so, demonstrates a high tolerance for conspiracy theories and disinformation that is, she seems, and this is a quote, wide open to bullshit.
Oh, what? Okay. Well, that seems mild by comparison.
It does, but, again, opening the gates to Putin, not great.
Yeah, no, all right. And by the way, the methodology, we're going to avoid World War III by going right to 4.
Right. Something you probably covered, I know I didn't, but definitely deserves a mention.
All right.
Jack Smith and what happens to him.
Yes.
Jack Smith stepped down.
Yes.
Or announced he was going to step down.
Hello, everybody. I'm leaving.
But that's important. Hello, I must be going. That's Groucho Marx.
Yep. He's gonna. Clearly he wouldn't last long if he tried to stay. But
if he steps down now, he gets to write a report.
Yes, he has to.
If he stays,
well, quote unquote, has to. Yeah.
Then he gets fired, and the report gets squashed by Matt Gaetz or whoever.
Yeah, if he can leave before the new Attorney General comes in,
January 6th.
Yes. So, 20th. I guess.
Well, yeah. Well, whenever, because on the
20th
at 12:01, he can't do anything.
Right, and Matt Gaetz can cook and eat him.
Very, 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 very first act, even before deporting your grandmother, is going to be firing Jack Smith. Yes,
and he might not even wait for that. He gives more and more indication every time he speaks that he flirts with saying, "I can do some of these things before January 20th." He can't, well, quote unquote can't, but some people are surrendering to him early. So, he's
been talking to Putin all along, so he can continue to do that.
Sure. Why not? It's fun and
the Logan Act doesn't exist, so stop.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, there's no law anymore, as you know.
Yeah, there isn't.
So, right. So one of the many things that may happen, there's that. And then, of course, as we mentioned earlier, or as I hinted at earlier, still more discussion every minute about the possibility of forcing or coercing the Republicans in the Senate to all simultaneously looking at their watches while he recess appoints somebody to each one of these jobs, or just the ones that
with them in charge,
that are going to be difficult.
I don't think that's going to fly.
Yeah, probably not. Although it won't. It shouldn't fly for very long, or certainly not permanently, regardless. But yeah, I don't know how many times he's going to let Trump get away with that. But again, with such a narrow margin, the play is to have 3 or 4 senators saying, we'll, happily collude with others to bounce you out of office unless you get out of the way for Trump on this one. The question is Gaetz one of the ones that they would say that about? That I don't know. Yeah. They might be I don't like him at all.
On Jack Smith.
Oh, yeah. All right. Sorry.
One point
what was that guy's name again?
I don't think gets enough
Smith
discussion.
Sure.
And that is to say, in all the other cases,
there's
been so much public information that we pretty much know what the deal is. Whether it's Fani Willis and that doesn't go forward, we know what Trump did in Georgia with the Brad Raffensperger call, for example. With January 6th, we know what happened on January 6th.
Yeah, to no avail, but we know.
What we don't really know, and the one that we most need a report on to figure out what the heck is going on here, is the Florida case with the secret documents.
Yes, because that one's dismissed.
Because we don't know what happened.
Right. Because it was dismissed. See how this works? Goes around and around in circles. Right. Yeah.
A criminal trial is arguably the best vehicle for uncovering the truth.
Sure, why not?
A jury hears relevant evidence, etc. The laws explain. The members of the jury deliberate. I'll be doing that next week, by the way. So
right.
Here.
Beginning Thursday or?
Thursday at the 27th, so it's like 2 weeks. But I just keep telling myself so that I don't accidentally report the jury duty on the wrong day.
Thursday the 27th.
Whatever. It's the end of the month.
Okay. Isn't that Thanksgiving?
It's the last Thursday in this month. So I'll be here next Thursday, but not the one after that, if my calendar is correct.
Oh. All right. Well, my brain is incorrect, so I won't be reporting that correctly.
That will not happen here with this case because the public nor the defendant is going to be having the opportunity to persuade a jury. So given this imperfect situation, there should at a minimum be a permanent public record. We don't have one, and that's why Jack Smith leaving early and perhaps writing a report is so important in this case.
Yeah, if his report includes that. I'm not certain what the rules are on that. If the case is, I mean, he's appealed the dismissal of the case, so I guess he could say, here's the state of the appeal, and then dump it.
Yes.
So
here's why I did this in the first place, and here's the state of the appeal. You know,
yeah. And by the way, this idiot judge, my God. But yeah, maybe she's the backup AG. Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay. Her name was floated to everyone's shock and dismay, which was the point. Okay. Right. So Jack Smith, let's wind it up. Let's get that report sooner rather than later, by the way, sir. Might not be a bad idea. My guess is they've already done a tremendous amount of that paperwork because they were going to tell a jury about it, and now they could just tell us.
Right. So let's see. What else are we going to talk about?
They have to take it to Kinko's.
It's almost 10 o'clock.
So it could be a long time. Yeah.
Right. Maybe nothing. Maybe this one from Thomas Frank in the New York Times. The elites had it coming.
Maybe not that one. But okay, who's the elites this time?
Me again?
I can't believe it. Oh, yeah. Although this does strike me a little bit as, isn't this the David Brooks, I've made my friend sad by going to an Italian deli story in a way?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Great. Well, you know, whether it's lunch meats or constitutional concepts.
Or this one from Brian Beutler. Democrats don't have to be perfect, but in today's media environment, they'll always be seen as failures. If you analyze the interaction between media, the economy, and public opinion in a systematic way, the distorting effects of media become pretty obvious.
Yes.
So all the unfolding recrimination, a fairly strong consensus is already formed across the left that last week's election results are part of a global post-COVID, post-inflation backlash against incumbents, and for what it's worth, I agree.
That is some broadly ivory tower language and very elite. I didn't understand any of it.
Right, but for some, the case is closed. Conditions made people mad. The key is to create better conditions. You can't run the economy too cool. You can't run it too hot either. It has to be just so for voters to act in their best material interest. And if you question whether the case might be so open and shut, the pushback can be fierce. I think a more complicated explanation is also more practicable and wouldn't require Democrats to lose a shred of empathy. For example, if the main lesson of the 2024 election is don't get caught holding the ball after a worldwide catastrophe, it's true, but you can't do much about that. But the reductive analysis leaves important questions unanswered. Why are voters everywhere so much more lastingly resentful about inflation than any other economic turbulence? Why were they unresponsive to the unusually good economy we've enjoyed? Why did Harris lose millions of Biden votes a year and a half after inflation normalized? My theory of the case is, well, it didn't start just now. It started in 2000 when the Supreme Court awarded the presidency to George W. Bush, and from that point onward, people starting to lose trust in their institutions, and it accelerated. And the Fed is just another institution that people don't trust after the CDC. So COVID had a lot of insidious effects beyond just whether or not it disrupted the supply chain. That's my theory.
Okay. I think that's got some merit.
Right. We can't go back in time.
That also has merit.
And arm Democrats with a better information environment. But
we wouldn't know how to build it in this time or the other.
Yeah, but we can imagine. We can use our imaginations.
Yeah. Yes. Well, we have that going for us.
Well, we don't know what would have happened had Democrats blamed Trump for inflation relentlessly starting way back in 2021. That's also one of my theories. Biden wasn't mean enough.
Yes, well, he was doing an adult thing.
Yeah. Anyway, for now, if nothing about the information environment changes, I predict Trump will claim credit for the economy he inherited once he's in power, many Trump-aligned or Trump-sympathetic media figures will trash their old scripts and either start talking about how many groceries they can afford all of a sudden. If Trump's policies or corporate blackmail practices don't reduce prices, he and his aligned media will blame all the hardship on Biden from the moment they can.
They can now. They will.
And so that's what Democrats should do in terms of messaging. They never do.
Oh.
That's his point.
All right. Well, I did see somebody suggest, given that it's unlikely to see prices at the grocery store drop precipitously in any in the short term.
Fail. I mean, that's not the question. He's not going to succeed at what he claims to do, which is lower prices.
That's obviously true. But so the suggestion
question is, how quickly does it take for him to start blaming Harris for everything?
Well, I think to that point, the suggestion was, what about spending the time in between now and the official beginning of the Trump administration, relentlessly advertising, hey, they said the prices were going to go down. They didn't. Like, already, just jump the gun. Just do it now. There will be people who say, there's hard. He's not even, there hasn't been time. But there will be others who say, hey, yeah. Because apparently America is full of the second kind of people.
What Trump is going to do is going to say, look, the whole reason that prices haven't dropped is because a black woman dared to run for president. It's Harris's fault, and let me just put $1 million behind the media ads for that, which are not going to be on TV.
That's true.
They're going to be on podcasts.
The thinking was, well, what if we did that although I just don't know if we have the network to do that with, I guess. And, it's a great idea. What if we just spread that and everybody in America saw it? Okay. How could we get them to see it? Ways.
And then a miracle occurs.
Yeah. I guess that's basically it. But it was an interesting thought. Like, well, what if the campaign just kind of continued? But who pays for that? I don't know.
You do. This is a grassroots campaign.
I guess so. I'm supposed to shell out.
Gave him $1 billion, and all I got is this T-shirt.
Yeah.
The Beyonce concert.
Yeah, and the Trump and Republican network. I mean, the deep pockets there, the people who are committed to, if necessary, depleting their entire fortune. That never happens, but to do this work.
Oh, the Mike Pillow guy depleted his fortune.
Which guy did? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's
the
true.
Uline guy didn't, but and
the
Musk
My
didn't,
Pillow.
But the My Pillow guy did.
Yeah, maybe that's the difference in the approach. Your line, My Pillow, and you lost. So, right. Well, this is an issue. It's been a continuing issue since forever. On the Democratic side, everybody's cautious somehow with their billions. I don't know why that is. But, okay, well, we don't get it, even though, not even from the Coldies people who have it to spare and have good reason to send us a couple bucks. But, all right, Greg, well, thank you. This wraps up the week for you. Yeah. All right, well, we'll catch up with you next week, and then, I guess,
see you Monday.
Yeah, at least 3 times.
Metaphorically speaking.
True. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We face a big decision here on whether or not... I was just thinking, I've been thinking it, I've been musing aloud about it, but I was just talking to Greg about it too. Like, do I think it would help us get through the Trump era if we stopped bleeping every time, we had to read as a quote or just accidentally mentioned in quotes, and we didn't self-censor. And in some cases it's funny when we hear the bleeps, and in some cases it's not. And I imagine as time goes on, there'll be more of it. And I don't know I don't think it lands us in any trouble because we're not on public airwaves anyway. So I don't think that's going to be the issue. But it might, I don't know. I guess it'll have to be a humor call. Is it funnier to hear that phrasing uncensored, or is it funnier to hear it with bleeps? Like, for instance, Greg discussing the vaccines back in the day, right?
Oh my fucking God, get the fucking vaccine already, you fucking fucks.
I mean, that's kind of funny to hear it bleeped that way, but I don't know. We'll have to have a discussion about that and working on it as a policy going forward. Okay, so let's see. Time to dive into other items which are waiting in the wings. Oh, let's see. What has Scott sent me here? Oh, McSweeney's. They're always funny. And they should buy The Onion, which just bought comedy should just eat comedy as far as I'm concerned. Wow, Trump has already fixed so many problems that definitely existed, by Tom Ellison. Oh, okay, I guess that would be right on point for our, discussions of what happens in the interim before Donald Trump takes over and what can we propagandize / lie about in the time in between. Unbelievably, this piece begins, President-elect Trump hasn't even been inaugurated yet, and he's already solved so many of the problems he talked about on the campaign trail, almost as if they were never there at all. I'm so glad I voted for him. You get the idea? I was really outraged about inflation, but miraculously today I woke up in Trump's America, and the average worker's paycheck goes further than it did pre-COVID. Not only that, but the United States is ahead of every developed economy in recovering from the pandemic. I don't know how Trump pulled that off so fast. Tariffs? Now, I guess one of the things I would mention along the way is there are, according to what I've been reading from leading proponents of this, now nobody's laughing. They're all rolling their eyes at the ivory tower language that's just been used. You're too smart for the voters. You have to meet them where they live. You can't say things like the average worker's paycheck goes further than it did pre-COVID and the United States is ahead of every developed economy in recovering from the pandemic. What? Okay, nerd. Whatever. I prefer a column that says pee pee poo poo. LOL YOLO. I'm going to TikTok. So, I don't know how to meet people where they live on that stuff and still, describe what's going on here. But okay. Back to McSweeney's. I guess businessmen just know how to run the economy. That must be why. When I checked yesterday, the stock market was at an all-time high, and unemployment was under 5%. What a turnaround from America's catastrophic economic decline under the Democrats. And all the more impressive given that Trump got it done over the weekend at Mar-a-Lago. It seems President-elect Trump worked so fast that illegal migration at the U.S.-Mexico border is now at levels below when he left office, a mere negative 2 months into his second term. At first, it seems almost unbelievable, but my eyes confirmed the numbers. Walking around my local Costco, there were none of the roving hordes of terrorists, MS-13 members, and escaped serial killers that Lion Kamala had chauffeured past Border Patrol. Zero. It's almost as if they were never there. And I can't help but notice that since November 5th, no one has eaten my cats. I don't mean to gloat, but yesterday I also went to our state's last abortion clinic and I shrieked, "This is the Trump era. You can't execute babies after birth anymore." And guess what? They haven't. Thank you, Mr. President. And abroad, Trump is already keeping our military strong and making our allies pay up. Apparently, all non-U.S. NATO countries are raising their defense spending since the election. I haven't seen a single electric tank. Quite an improvement from November 4th when the U.S. was spending 75% of its GDP on United Nations DEI training, and Europe's contributions to NATO consisted of a Nissan Leaf and 2 camouflage rape whistles. Oh, boy. Plus, I don't even remember the last time a cabal of pizza-loving devil worshippers from the Clinton Foundation abducted my son. I guess when you roll up your sleeves, cut through the red tape, and reject the woke mind virus, you can really solve a lot of problems that are based in reality. And thank God we've finally regained our senses about gender. I don't want my 10-year-old daughter kickboxing against men or getting top surgery from her school nurse without my consent. But now that Trump has done whatever he's done, those problems are non-existent. We weren't safe under the Democrat Party, but Trump is already bringing back law and order. I just checked, and law enforcement budgets are growing, which is such a welcome reversal from when Joe Biden abolished the police, appointed George Floyd FBI director, and declared it legal to murder white people. Talking to my friends, it feels almost like since we elected a law and order candidate, crime has dropped to a 50-year low. Well, not literally, but you get my point. Oh, and best of all, elections are super fair and not rigged anymore. Yeah, I think you largely got it down pat. So, all right, I'll mark that one for inclusion. Although, Scott, you should just already start writing the summary and put that in there. And then you'll have a head start because you already have the link. All right, what's Greg sending me behind the scenes here? More about Matt Gaetz. I mean, the guy's obsessed with Matt Gaetz. Come on. Let's see. What's this? Wall Street Journal piece, an opinion piece. Matt Gaetz is a bad choice for Attorney General. Well, there you go. Pointing out when you lose the Wall Street Journal, you've really lost. I'm not a subscriber, so I can't read the entirety of the article, which is just fine by me, but he sent me a little excerpt here. Matt Gaetz has resigned from Congress. House Speaker Mike Johnson announced on Wednesday, the same day that President-elect Donald Trump tapped the Florida lawmaker to serve as his Attorney General. Johnson said Gaetz' resignation is effective immediately. A special election will be held in Gaetz' district located in western Florida. You remember where you were told at length in one of the Bulwark articles, right? To determine his replacement. What else have we got here? Matt Gaetz quits Congress just days before the key vote on his, and that's where the headline stops in this little thumbnail. But with him, you got to wonder, key vote on his what? Okay. Well, that's Yahoo News. We could take a look at that. We'll use that as our source instead of the other article that I put away, which I can't remember which publication it was, but maybe we'll tell you when we dive back into Pocket. Matt Gaetz quits Congress just days before the vote on his ethics report. Grace Harrington and Zachary Folk report for, well, where is it? It's the Daily Beast coming to us via the Yahoo News, which is fine because that eliminates the necessity of reading it in Pocket, since very often their work is paywalled. Let's see, Matt Gaetz resigning from Congress effective immediately, just hours after just hours after President-elect Donald Trump named the Republican firebrand as his selection for Attorney General, the Republican child molester, House Speaker Mike Johnson confirmed the news to reporters Wednesday night. Do I care about this part of it? Probably not. The surprise resignation almost assuredly means the end of a long-running ethics probe into Gaetz' alleged misconduct. House Ethics Chair Michael Guest said earlier on Wednesday that if Gaetz is successfully approved as Attorney General and leaves Congress for good, the committee will close its case. Oh, well, that's interesting. He says earlier Wednesday that if maybe he said that before the resignation, because I think the resignation does the trick. He's out. They go on to report that this is because the Ethics Committee only has jurisdiction over sitting members of Congress, Guest told CNN Wednesday. By the way, that was an opportunity for Gaetz to try out for Donald Trump the constitutional notion that if you just don't use a chair, then you can't be prosecuted, or they only have jurisdiction over you if you're a sitting member. But if you stand up, they can't do this. So you just have to stay on your feet like a filibuster until they give up and decide not to report on you. This is because, with this, we just read this part. Sources later told Punchbowl News that Gaetz resigned only 2 days before the committee was scheduled to vote on releasing a, quote, highly damaging report based on their probe. CNN and Fox News later confirmed the vote's timing. I've already seen various investigative organizations, newspaper outlets saying, gosh, I wish somebody would leak this report to me. I'd be happy to print it. The committee was restricted from releasing their findings too close to Florida's primary election in August and then the general election in November, CNN reported. That's another great usage of timing by Republicans in ways that Democrats are generally too embarrassed to use and too worried about shattering, rather than getting the actual news out and information available to voters. Not that they were going to do anything sensible with it. But then again, if that's the case, then why the worry about releasing things too close to an election date? But there you have it. They had this report. They were ready to release it. And then Gaetz said, you can't release it now. It'll impact the outcome of the primary election. Okay, fine, sure. Okay, he wins the primary election. You can't release it now. It's too close and it will impact the outcome of the actual general election. No, it won't. The whole point of you and your district was that nothing would impact that. Yeah, but I don't want it anyway. All right, well, then we won't do that. All right, well, then I resign and you can't release it. Okay, sure. The committee was restricted from releasing the findings too close to Florida's primary in August and the general in November. It remains unclear whether the information will be made public after Gaetz' resignation. The Florida congressman has been under investigation for alleged sexual misconduct, illicit drug use, accepting improper favors, and obstructing investigations into his misconduct, which we just read the evidence of a second ago. But never mind all that. Gaetz has previously denied all of these allegations. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will now have to call for a special election to replace Gaetz, which could happen in as little as 8 weeks. I've already placed a call to Governor DeSantis in Florida and said, let's start the clock, Johnson told reporters on Wednesday. Johnson said Gaetz had expressed concern over leaving a seat vacant for the incoming Congress. House Speaker said Florida law will give them about 8 weeks to fill Gaetz' seat. If we start the clock now, if you do the math, we may be able to fill that seat as early as January 3rd when we take the new oath of office for the new Congress, Johnson said. Many members of Congress, including guests, were taken aback to learn that President-elect Donald Trump had picked Gaetz for the post on Wednesday. You know, like most members, I was surprised. His name was not someone that I had heard come up previously, the Mississippi Republican said. But, you know, like with any other cabinet-level selection, there'll be a confirmation process. And so if any of the senators have questions about his or any other cabinet member's ability to serve, those questions will be figured out during that confirmation process. Well, that's probably rather a cop-out, right? Like if the question is, what did the Ethics Committee find out about you? And if the Ethics Committee's answer is, we're not telling, well then, no. Those questions won't be figured out during the confirmation process. Gaetz has spent years fighting with his colleagues in the House, leading the charge to oust House Republican Speaker, or Republican House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy. Many of his colleagues expressed shock at his nomination on Wednesday, while others doubted he would make it through the confirmation hearing in the Senate. So, anyway, lots of questions. The next story in the scroll, I guess, and this is, all the news in the Yahoo News feed about Gaetz. The next one up was the New Republic, Edith Olmsted writing on opinion column under the headline, Matt Gaetz' surprise resignation suddenly makes perfect sense. And I guess that's about the ethics charges. So there you go. Anything new and revelatory in here? No, except for the fact that it actually mentions that Gaetz was previously investigated by the Justice Department, that he'll now head, over allegations that he'd engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a 17-year-old girl and violated sex trafficking laws. But, as you know, no charges were ever formally filed against him, and that's got people, mad at Merrick Garland again. And I don't know whether the charges would have gone anywhere or not. I never had the feeling that Merrick Garland was protecting him, as other people like to accuse him of doing. But was he super aggressive in pressing charges? Certainly not in the way that Gaetz will be when he is if he becomes Attorney General. And really, no matter whether it's him or someone else eventually serving as Trump's Attorney General or acting Attorney General, however he ends up doing it, they will be overly aggressive with things like that and will prosecute Democrats at the drop of a hat, even if they end up spectacularly losing the case. They don't really care one way or the other, and there's no reciprocation there. Even though, usually when they're discussing these things behind closed doors, whether it's Merrick Garland or anybody else, any other Democrat, they're saying, well, if we do this, first of all, we may blow it. I mean, I don't know if this case holds up unless we get X, Y, and Z. And these people are just not talking, mostly because they've been pardoned along the way or they're just MAGA brainwashed and they just won't do it. But also, even if we succeed, we just start, a tit-for-tat exchange. Republicans, if we do this to the Republicans will do this to us. And a million times we've seen, well, if you don't do it to Republicans will still think you did it to them and then do it to you. So you might as well just go ahead and do it. But we haven't reached that stage with Democratic Party elders yet. Maybe soon. But the people who should be moving into the upper ranks of the Democratic Party and assuming these positions are Generation Xers, and apparently they're all voting for Trump. But so they've bought into the ideology, just they aren't voting with Democrats. And I don't know. I guess Democrats that are moving into these positions of leadership are still, married to the old ways for whatever reason. Okay. So let's see. Other things I wanted to share with you. There are many. Here's more about Pete Hegseth. Why don't I do this? We'll just dive in and start reading things like mad to you for the next couple of days. This time, an interesting perspective brought to you by a long-time, I don't know what you would call him. So, certainly someone on whose work the show frequently reflects back and focuses, Jeff Sharlet, who's done terrific work on a lot of things and now offers his scholarship on the religious bent of white supremacist America and connects all the dots that are tattooed onto Pete Hegseth's arms here. Scenes from a Slow Civil War is Jeff's Substack, and he writes about the Pentagon Papers of Pete Hegseth. Trump's new Secretary of Civil War, as he's putting it, meets the press. And this is his entry from yesterday, though a lot of it is introductory and saying, hey, it's been a while, I guess, since he's written on the Substack, but he'll be back and probably back more frequently now that a new Trump era will be unfolding. The normalcy has gone away, the chaos is back, and so I guess so is his Substack. So, anyway, right now he says, I'm posting now to put down a marker. On Tuesday, Trump announced Fox News talking head Pete Hegseth as his new Secretary of Defense, but offense as well. This guy, in a picture of him posing, stern-faced, waving a flag and displaying the right arm tattoos. Including the very trite "We the People" one on the forearm. But some seems to be something about the placement of that too, because I've seen that on a lot of people's arms in the same place, right on the forearm, the "We the People" thing. It's never anywhere else. It's never oriented differently. I see it on cops. I see it on militia people. There's some meaning there too, but not a parody. That picture. This is not something that we said, AI, give us a photo of Pete Hegseth. It was actually the cover of his 2020 book, American Crusade, that Greg mentioned. Hegseth's first tattoo, he says, was of a cross with a blade to represent Matthew chapter 10, verse 34, a cherry-picked version of Jesus as warrior, popular with Christian nationalists, that being the "I did not come to bring peace but a sword." On his chest, he has inked a Jerusalem cross, a symbol of the Crusaders' holy war against Muslims and Jews. And on the flip side of his bicep, there's this, featured on his Instagram. It's the Deus Vult tattoo. Also, by the way, in the same Gothic script as the "We the People," in a way, not exactly the same, but evocative of that. But of course, it's not just a picture of that, it's a picture of him flexing and showing you the tattoo as well. He's a very tough guy. Anyway, Deus Vult, God wills it, is more Crusader kitsch and popular with white supremacists. That doesn't mean Hegseth's a hater. Maybe he's just a history buff. Tuesday night, I had a late-night drive home from Boston, during which I tuned into the BBC. They turned to former Democratic Senator Doug Jones for comment on Hegseth. No mention of the tattoos. Politics is serious. Unqualified, said Jones, or
Unacceptable!
as we like to put it here, but argued the BBC host, paraphrasing here, I was driving, not taking notes. He's an Army veteran. So why unacceptable? There are nearly 16 million veterans in the U.S. Does the BBC think they're all qualified for the highest military position besides the commander-in-chief? Doug Jones only made it worse. Really? Is that right? He said he didn't know what Hegseth did in the military, which is to say the BBC turned to comment on the top figure of the most powerful military in the world history to another TV talking head who couldn't be bothered to even look at the wiki. Well, I mean, I don't know why they turned to Doug Jones, but yeah, I mean, you can't fault him for not being up to date on what Pete Hegseth did in the military. Well, I guess you can if you knew he was going to be interviewed. Give me 5 minutes, I'll get right back to you. I guess you could try that. Pete Hegseth who already has declared his plans to clean house of, quote, woke generals who he claims only have their jobs because of, quote, diversity, stalled out at Major. Right. Okay. I got home in the early a.m., too caffeinated to sleep and too afraid to look away. I knew enough about Hegseth to understand that this was a Stephen Miller level appointment, full fash. So, how does the New York Times report on this? The choice of Mr. Hegseth, a dedicated supporter of the president-elect in his first term, is outside the norm of the traditional choices for the post. Outside the norm. That's one way of putting it. But here's how Hegseth himself describes the U.S. military, how the U.S. military views the man soon to be in charge of it over his 2024 book, in his 2024 book, The War on Warriors. That's happening all over the place, right? The War on Warriors. Not Christmas, the War on Warriors. Behind the betrayal of the men who keep us free. This is his fourth book, and here's how he discusses the situation. And in 2021, Pete Hegseth, was deemed an, quote, extremist by that very same army. Yes, you read that right. 20 years, and the military I loved, I fought for, I revered, spit me out. Well, you were an a-hole, and they got rid of you because you were declaring your intent to fight for the other side. That's the problem. But back to Jeff here. You didn't even have to read the book to know that this is about Hegseth. All you had to do was have watched Fox News, which should be a basic part of a Trumpism beat. It was on Fox that Hegseth emerged as a leading voice of defiance in the military justice system. Sam Thielman summed it up well in 2020 for Columbia Journalism Review, in which he described Hegseth's use of his Fox pulpit to successfully lobby Trump on behalf of 3 military personnel charged with or convicted of, in Hegseth's terms, quote-unquote, so-called war crimes. Most notoriously, Navy SEAL. Oh, they're always covering themselves in glory, the Navy SEALs. Eddie Gallagher, whose platoon mates said he stabbed to death a teenaged prisoner receiving medical care and shot a school-age girl. Let's see if he gets an appointment. Right, Sam. Throughout his crusade, Hegseth portrayed Gallagher and his fellow beneficiaries of Trump's largesse, that is to say his pardons. Remember, he pardoned Gallagher. I guess commuted his sentence, if nothing else. I can't remember which. But largely meant to give you the same message. Hegseth portrayed Gallagher and his fellow beneficiaries of Trump's largesse as persecuted tough guys, like the renegade cops in a 1990s action movie, Mavericks, who get results. It was perfect bait. Trump tweeted on October 12th, a little more than a month before pardoning Lawrence, L-O-R-A-N-C-E, Lawrence, and Gallagher, and ending Goldstein's prosecution. We train our boys to be killing machines, then prosecute them when they kill. And then tagging Pete Hegseth. I guess that was Trump. So we train our boys. Okay, just to give you a sampling of his voice. I began my journalism career, Jeff says, covering courts-martial in San Diego, and I've reported on Christian nationalism within the armed forces, but I'm not a military reporter. This isn't my beat. This isn't my story. But I can read. And that's where I start when I want to understand the thinking of someone who's written, or, who knows, put their name on the cover of a book. Anyway, the New York Times quotes one of the book's first pages, too, and then none of the jaw-dropping Civil War fantasy rhetoric that fills what follows. The Washington Post quotes nothing. CNN wonders whether he has sufficient administrative experience. Well, is none sufficient? Politico worries what the lobbyists will think. The lobbyists will be like, sign here, man. Whatever. I think I saw somebody share this on social media, right? Yeah, sure, right. All of our missiles are guaranteed 100% woke free. Sign here, please. Okay. And the price went up 30% to get all the woke out, right? I want to be careful here. I don't think any of these journalists, some of whom at least are otherwise strong reporters, is secretly rooting for fascism. It's important to distinguish between advocacy, acquiescence, and the simple abdication under cover of cabinet selection as court intrigue. Many can't, won't see can't and won't, I guess, see fascist rhetoric as such because they believe or fear that doing so is unsophisticated. Ooh, that's an excellent point. That's sort of a church of the savvy thing that we hear about from time to time. These guys they know guys like Hegseth are grifters, that in the green room, nobody's a Nazi. Sure, he's intense, but it's mostly just theater. Just theater. As if fascism isn't first and foremost an aesthetic, the forceful imposition of a hateful imagination on other people's realities. File a quick hit, call it a night, tomorrow there'll be new names over which to titter. Me, I couldn't sleep. So I read, and I started posting on Blue Sky. I'm going to gather my gleaning here. Too tired to make real prose. What follows are just reading notes, or reading notes are him just reading them to us, and me reading them to you. Okay, but after the break, we'll start reading those notes. And I didn't get very far, though there is more than enough already to give me bad dreams. Caffeine's wearing off. Fascism will still be here tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. And so we begin. Let's get a taste of it before we exit. Part 1. Gist of SecDef Hegseth's book War on Warriors, per the intro, seems to be that the military is now anti-white. It is also conquered by a diversity infection intent on sabotaging the military, which would be treason. You know, the easy steps to treasons with these guys. Which would, in the logic of the book, justify the self-declared extremism of a response that he all but calls military itself. Saying, our military cannot survive a long-term infection of a radical left-wing social justice policies. And here's what we do about it after the break. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Let's read on, although, you know, the more I read on, this is important stuff, and I think it's helpful and worthwhile, and I'm thinking about all of the other pieces waiting in the wings, and we're just going to have to broadcast 24/7, I guess, from now on, but we're not going to, because I don't have the voice for that. We left off with a part 1 of Jeff Charlotte's sort of glance through the record as quickly as he could on Pete Hegseth, beginning with his latest book, The War on Warriors, apparently, in which he says, our military cannot survive a long-term infection of a radical left-wing social justice policies designed to isolate, resegregate, and stigmatize certain troops based on specific racial, gender, or political philosophy. Sure, that's happening. It's just happening, right? Our military cannot survive the intentional cratering of good order and discipline in the name of equity, standards ignored at every level and in every realm, or none. Take your pick, I guess. Before I go much further with this, I will say now waiting in the wings is something I grabbed from social media during the break. Philip Bump, one of our usual suspects here, writing the piece, writing what he's got on Gaetz. And the headline kind of jives with what's going on here. The central argument behind the Gaetz nomination, what is it? Democrats are worse. That is, President-elect Trump's nomination of Matt Gaetz to run the Justice Department is reactionary both in motivation and in the defenses it has triggered. What he's saying here is the central premise in the argument for his nomination and confirmation is, well, whatever he's done, the Democrats already did it anyway, and they're worse, so there you go. By the way, Matthew Rigdon weighing in on the bleeping situation, saying, I say stop using the bleeps. They're cringe or mid, whatever. Something the Youngs aren't a fan of. Oh, that could be. Right. That's true. They may not find those things that entertaining. And, all right, that's a thought. I'll give that some consideration as well. I mean, I don't think it's going to be, oh my God, that's not going to be the reason they arrest me and throw away the key, right? All right. So, all right, where were we with Jeff, Charlotte? Let's get back to that. He was saying if there's any ambiguity about what Hegseth means by infection, he clears it right up, writing, meanwhile, affirmative action promotions have skyrocketed, with firsts being the most important factor in filling new commanders. We will not stop until trans, lesbian, black females run everything. Oh yeah, that was the big applause line in all those speeches, remember? The Afghanistan failure reverberated worse than who cares about the rest of it? This is his idea here. Everybody knows that the top military brass just can't stop making trans, lesbian, black females into general officers. There are so many of them, right? Anyway, litter boxes are in the schools, kids are getting surgery, they're eating the pets, whatever, everything is just an outrageous lie. Anyway, here is an uncommonly privileged white man named by Trump to run the military, in which many, many black, female, and queer Americans serve, as Hegseth currently does not, who have volunteered to put their lives on the line if need be, while Hegseth prattles on Fox, attacking the very soldiers, sailors, airmen, that is, of course, the term the Air Force uses. Could it be air people sometime soon? Who knows? Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and Guardians, the Trump term for members of the Space Force that he created. But anyway, yes, they've all volunteered to put their lives on the line, and he's attacking the very people who have, in fact, done that, volunteered for that, and whom he's set to lead. In his mind, they are the enemy. Interesting. He's taking over the enemy forces. How weird. But then Hegseth, like John Wayne and the Searchers, sees savages everywhere. Another grab quote here. Places where police must respect the indigenous population of street addicts and operate under a bizarre set of rules of engagement that effectively cede the territory, parentheses, neighborhood, to the enemy, parentheses, criminals. Boy, that's egg-headed. He should stop doing that because the kids, they don't like it. Hegseth has made a Fox News career out of attacking elites, but he is an elite, a graduate of Princeton and Harvard, and you should all be ashamed of yourselves. He knows what he's doing here with his use of indigenous and territory. His hatred for the infection doesn't stop at bastions of liberalism such as Sodom, San Francisco, and the Marines. What a collection, right? It goes all the way up to any commander-in-chief not named Trump. Another screen grab here. After fighting against an external radical Islamist ideology for 20 years, America's veterans, generally speaking, were exhausted, and our ranks thinned and confused by fighting a war on two fronts. On the one side, many of us fought in a foreign war, making temporary allegiance with neoconservatives who in the moment defended a war we believed in, but on the home front, the left never stopped. Then Senator Obama's defeat of Senator John McCain in 2008 left many of us feeling deflated. The wars were doomed, and that's the end. Who cares what the rest of it? That's what it says. Trump's Secretary of Defense, responsible for executing the orders to use the U.S. military domestically, Trump has said that he will give. The unlawful orders that he fired one of his previous defense secretary, Mark Esper, for refusing, refers to the left, a category in which he includes protesters, professors, and presidents as domestic enemies. More screen grabs here. While the post-9/11 generation of patriots spent 2 decades fighting enemies abroad, we allowed America's domestic enemies at home to gobble up cultural, political, and spiritual territory. Whatever that might mean. Overextended, our rear guard was exposed, and the enemy pounced. Republicans and conservatives at home did a really, this is his word, a really job holding down the home front, to say the least. Oh my God, he used profanity. He's therefore disqualified from service. Hegseth views them and us as much as he viewed his enemies in Iraq. That's good to know. He won't be able to distinguish between us when he flips his wig and walks the street with an AR-15. Antifa, BLM, and now Hamas supporters and other progressive stormtroopers, all the Hamas guys that I hang out with, have done their best to create little Samaras. What are Samara? Samara is the Iraqi town I was deployed in. He's not like a nine tour combat vet, by the way, but anyway, so now everything is Samara, because that's where he went. But they're doing their best to create little Samaras in the center of cities like Portland, Chicago, Minneapolis, Seattle, New York, and San Francisco. You know, all the places where big cities happen. And they're all Samara now. And he knows just what to do. Marxists are our enemies, busy killing Islamists in whole countries, and then betrayed by our leaders. Oh, boy. All right, well, there's more. Our warriors have every reason to let America's dynasty fade away. Leftists stole a lot from us, but we won't let them take this, whatever it is. Time for round 2. We won't miss this war. Oh, the one at home. Remember, by the way, when we were fighting them over there so that we didn't have to fight them over here? Well, the reason we don't have to fight them over here is we want our military not to be distracted by fighting them over here. We want our military to come home and fight us. Terrific. Well, what happened to all those Roman history buffs? What happens when you bring the army home? All right, well, whatever. This is supposedly what is not outside the norms, right? Thanks a lot. This is Civil War talk. In Hegseth's previous book, 2022's Battle for the American Mind, Uprooting a Century of Miseducation. What a title. He called for rebuilding American schools along the lines of Trump's wildly ahistorical plan for, quote, patriotic education, the 1776 report. Remember? They were so mad about the 1619 report that they had to do a 1776 report. That is as baldly fascistic as it was in ambition. Hegseth's vision remained political in method. The language of the war on warriors, though, seems to indicate a belief in action beyond the political. There is no time or room for an insurgency. The left captured the military quickly. That's what we got, the military in our pocket, sure. And we must reclaim it at a faster pace. We must wage a frontal assault, a swift counterattack in broad daylight. If we wait for nightfall, they will regroup. If we retreat from the system to rebuild, it's gone. And building another American military is not an option. We have only one Pentagon, one Secretary of Defense. And the next one's name, it appears, will be Pete Hegseth. Wow. So he promises a coming soon a part 2 in which an honest white man can't get a fair shake besides being bumped from Major to Secretary of Defense because trans. Oh boy. Yeah, he's really at a super disadvantage. Look at all the things that have been stacked against poor Pete Hegseth. Princeton, Harvard, failing upward for 20 years, becoming Secretary of State because something, I heard about woke, and crafting a narrative where the left has captured the military. We should use it to stage a coup. But, we're down on such things. So apparently we're not going to do that. All right. So 2 different directions we can go from here. The one promised, I guess, is the one previously promised will be first. But this reminds me, the mention of the Trump education plan. The education plans have taken a great leap forward of late, and there's a new front in that. But we remember the, Project 1776, and we're going to have a new type of American education. How long is the piece that I've got on that, and how accessible is it, and can I sneak it in before we go back to more Matt Gaetz stuff? Well, no. I'll search for it in a second. Let me do the Matt Gaetz parallel that I said I saw from Philip Bump. If I can find it quickly enough. Where did we put that? There we are. The central argument behind the Gaetz nomination, Democrats are worse. Remember, President-elect's nomination of Gaetz to run the Justice Department is reactionary both in motivation and the defenses it has triggered. That's Philip Bump. I think we can run through it pretty quick and then get on to other bits that I think will hold together as a narrative to understand why President-elect Donald Trump nominated former, as of Wednesday afternoon, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz to serve as Attorney General in his upcoming administration. You don't need to look much further than Trump's announcement. The statement describes Gaetz as a William and Mary College of Law graduate. Apparently that's true. And a deeply gifted and tenacious attorney, which is both offered to check the most basic box the job would seem to demand. Is the nominee an attorney? And then we get to Gaetz's real qualifications. And is this Trump saying this? Yeah, I guess his appointment announcement. So I guess we could do it in his voice. Few issues in America, already you can tell this, he didn't write this, are more important than ending the partisan weaponization of our justice system. Or actually establishing it. Matt will end weaponized government, protect our borders, dismantle criminal organizations, and restore America's badly shattered faith and confidence. Almost everything is capitalized here, by the way, in the Justice Department. On the House Judiciary Committee, which performs oversight of DOJ, Matt played a key role in defeating the Russia hoax and exposing alarming and systemic government corruption and weaponization. Setting aside the hyperactive capitalization, he noticed too, it's worth pointing out that the priorities identified here are broadly imaginary. The reference to weaponized government is rooted in the prosecution of Trump for attempting to overturn the 2020 presidential election results and for failing to turn over classified documents when requested. The badly shattered faith in the Justice Department is a function of Trump's relentless bad-mouthing of the institution for having the temerity to investigate him at all. That includes the investigation into whether Trump or people on his 2016 campaign attempted to aid the Russian effort to boost his candidacy. His patter about the probe being a hoax is well worn by now, but the investigation was predicated on real concerns and ultimately found multiple points of contact between Trump allies and Russian actors. And now he's taken even more of those people and appointed them Director of National Intelligence. But casually calling it a hoax was a surefire way to earn Trump's blessing, so Gaetz and many others did so without qualms. But this is the pitch. Gaetz will undo the things that Trump said happened, even if they didn't. Tie that back to McSweeney's earlier on, right? And that means undoing things that Trump and his allies don't want to happen, even if they shouldn't be undone. One person close to Trump explained to Axios that the Gaetz appointment was meant to, quote, stop things like this, referring to an FBI search of the home of the CEO of Polymarket. I put that away. The betting market that became prominent during the 2024 presidential election. And you might remember that it became prominent because there was weirdly anomalous and huge amounts of money being bet on a Trump win, despite the fact that the polls, generally speaking, showed the opposite. But they were very interested in being able to hype a storyline that said, well, the betting markets say the other thing. And we understand why they would want that storyline, of course. But there was more than one, like multi hundreds of billions of dollars billionaires out there rooting for and actively working for and endorsing Trump, and they have money to burn. And so they said, well, I don't care whether these bets pay off or not, but it would be more awesome if they did pay off, so that there was some personal benefit from all this. But I can afford to burn all that money just for the hype line. But if I also get paid back by winning the election and or, arranging to make it look like we've won the election, if you're one of those guys, then that should be, great. That's an added bonus. So if you do that, is that legal? I don't know. Doesn't sound like it. So now the FBI has raided the home of the CEO of Polymarket, a betting market that became prominent during the election. A statement from the company called the search obvious political retribution for correctly indicating that Trump would win. Well, I think actually the question that they had in mind is whether or not the markets were being manipulated in some way, regardless of what they said. But okay, just as politics was the central conduit through which Trump battled his own indictments, Trump-loyal individuals and organizations, for those who can conceivably present themselves as such, may see their own legal problems go away because, it's just weaponization. Not using the department to dismiss them, but the weaponization was the fact that there were charges in the first place, you see. Allies of Trump offered variants on this argument when defending the Gaetz pick. It wasn't just that the Trump-loyal Floridian would bull in a china shop the Justice Department. It was that the bar for what qualifies as a good attorney general had already been lowered by Democratic appointees. You see, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance took this tack in promoting the Gaetz nomination on social media, which is how he got the nomination. I think the Gaetz appointment is probably coming from the same sources. And had Trump lost and been shattered by the weirdness of the J.D. Vance nomination, we wouldn't be here with the Gaetz thing, so it wouldn't matter either way. But I guess they got to be looking at it as a success and the sign that they should be doing more very online appointments. The main issue with Matt Gaetz is that he used his office to prosecute his political opponents and authorize federal agents to harass parents who were peacefully protesting at school board meetings, he wrote. Then, that's actually Merrick Garland, the current Attorney General, right? Okay. References, of course, to right here in Loudoun County, which remains a target of Project 2025 author, what's his name, Kevin Roberts. Right up at the top of the list, Chinese Communist Party, Loudoun County Public Schools. They lost here, but that's why they need to burn it down. And so the weaponization of the Justice Department, I'm sure they believe started before Merrick Garland, but Merrick Garland saying, no, you can't actually just come to school board meetings and threaten to murder the school board. Oh, now you're saying we're terrorists. Well, we're saying you can't threaten to murder the school board. Well, we'll put a stop to that. Yes, you can. Garland did oversee the prosecution of a political opponent of his boss, President Joe Biden, but only after that political opponent attempted to subvert the 2020 election, and only after he refused to respond to a subpoena for material marked as classified. You know who that might be? The Justice Department has historically engaged in dubious prosecution, certainly, but the public evidence for pursuing the narrow federal charges that Trump faced is pretty robust. As for the harassing of parents, that's more MAGA land fiction. Protests at school board meetings early in Biden's administration at times spilled over into threats against school officials. The Justice Department released a statement saying that violent threats would be addressed. This was slowly twisted into the talking point Vance offers, that by stating that violent threats were unacceptable, the Justice Department was targeting parents at school board meetings. This kind of stuff happens all the time. Oh, so now it's illegal for me to attend as a concerned parent and tell my school board members my opinion of the policies. Well, no, that's not actually what happened here. What happened is you showed up and made terroristic threats to murder members of the school board. Oh, so now my First Amendment rights don't count anymore. Well, that was never one of your First Amendment rights. Oh, so now, all over and over and over again. Anyway, so that's Vance's defense for Gaetz. Oh, you think Gaetz is bad? Well, no, he's good relative to a straw man who vaguely resembles Garland. On Fox News, Senator Lindsey Graham offered a similar take. I'm telling my Democratic friends, elections have consequences. Remember that one? That guy's dead now, by the way. Whether you like it or not, he said, suggesting that Gaetz deserved consideration if only because he was the president-elect's nominee. You're accusing Matt of doing the very thing that you did, he continued. No, we didn't, though. Matt Gaetz didn't lie under oath. Matt Gaetz did not sign FISA warrants that were based on Russian disinformation, so we're going to give the president a chance to put his people forward. To every Republican, give Matt a chance. Graham's pitch was noticeably unenthusiastic. Give him a chance is hardly the same as get this done. Again, though, notice the reliance on how Gaetz compares to others. It's whataboutism for nominations, amazingly enough. Again, notice the reliance on how Gaetz compares to others. Gaetz didn't sign the FISA warrants, to which Graham refers, but then again, neither did Garland. They were signed in 2016 and 2017. as the Justice Department sought to surveil Carter Page, a former advisor to Trump's first presidential campaign. Part of the application for the warrants depended on information compiled in a dossier of reports assembled by researcher Christopher Steele. We know they're mad at him, but it wasn't Merrick Garland. You may remember elements of that preceding paragraph from the years-long fight over the Russia investigation. The Carter Page FISA warrants played an outsider's role in the effort to undermine the validity of the investigation for the simple reason that they provided one of the few points of objective criticism of the process. There's not really a question, though, that Page's ties to Russia are, or were, worthy of investigation. And here's Graham using that issue to defend the Gaetz nomination, not because he's above reproach, but because, hey, he could be worse. It's reactionary. Trump's nomination is a reaction to his sincere irritation at facing a broad array of investigations. His supporters' defenses of the nomination are often rooted in the idea that the standard for service as Attorney General has already deteriorated thanks to Democratic nastiness. Remove the lens through which Trump considers the administration of justice, though, and the nomination looks very different. It looks like a nomination of a target of a federal investigation made by a target of a federal investigation with the goal of exacting revenge on federal investigators. All good points, certainly. All right, let's see. I'm going to jump back into Pocket and see whether I can scroll and scan fast enough to find the other link that I wanted to add to this. Now I'm concerned that some of it might be behind, might be from Blue Sky, and therefore more difficult to spot. But let's see. There's yeah, maybe it was in Blue Sky too. Let me open some of these things up and try and give you some recollection, if I can, of where we were going with this, which is to say, now as I'm opening it, I'm seeing some other things that I can add to the picture about Pete Hegseth and others. But this was, let me try and stick to what I was trying to find. This was a Trump plan announced at some point. Oh, goodness. I wish I could remember what photo this was being displayed with. But the idea was that he, again, was going to sort of supercharge this 1776 report, the 1776 commission idea, and revamp American education to be more, quote-unquote, patriotic. But, yeah, here we go. This was the message on Blue Sky from Sylvia Chi, C-H-I, Chi. I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. This, a note, he also, that is Trump, wants to confiscate private university endowments to create the American Academy, as he calls it, which will be strictly non-political. No wokeness or jihadism allowed. How do you like that one? This actually from his Agenda 47, which is strikingly similar in aim and content to Project 2025, but he points at one, and then if you accuse him of saying that Project 2025 is going to be his agenda, he says, no, it's something else. Like what? Well, maybe it's Agenda 47. Okay, then Agenda 47, which also sucks and is horrific, is going to be your agenda. No, it's something else. Maybe 2025. I don't know. But this is a link straight to it. Agenda 47, the American Academy. And at some point, there's a lengthy dissertation on how this whole thing will work. But it all is premised on the idea that for freedom, we're going to nationalize and seize the endowments of every private university in America, or at least maybe the ones he doesn't like very much. And then use that money somehow to create some sort of thing whereby anybody can get something awesome out of it. This is a transcript of a video, is how he announced this thing. We might as well read this thing. And it's sort of like, it starts out with grand vision, but then sort of devolves into Trump University again, which of course was taken away from him as a fraud. In recent weeks, it says, and maybe this is all his voice because it's a video. In recent weeks, Americans have been horrified to see students and faculty at Harvard and other once respected universities expressing support for the savages and jihadists who attacked Israel. We spend more money on higher education than any other country. And the we is, people just paying for it themselves. It's not a governmental expense. And yet they're turning our students into communists and terrorists and sympathizers of many, many different dimensions. Great. We can't let this happen, whatever it might be. It's time to offer something dramatically different. Under the plan I'm announcing today, we will take the billions and billions of dollars that we will collect by taxing, fining, and suing excessively large private university endowments. And then we will use that money to endow a new institution called the American Academy. Its mission will be to make a truly world-class education available to every American, free of charge, except for the seizures, and do it without adding a single dime to the federal debt because we stole the money for it. This institution will gather an entire universe of the highest quality educational content, covering the full spectrum of human knowledge and skills. That's an awful lot of stuff. We're very late on the music. Apologies to Justice for cutting into your time here. But then we'll make that material available to every American citizen online for free. Whether you want lectures or an ancient history or an introduction to financial accounting or training in a skilled trade, all things to all people. The goal will be to deliver it and to get it done properly using, study groups, mentors, industry partnerships, and the latest breakthrough in computing, whatever that might be. It will be a truly top-tier educational option for the people. It will be strictly non-political. There will be no wokeness or jihadism allowed. None of that is going to be allowed. I love to use the word allowed a lot. Most importantly, the American Academy will compete directly with the existing and very costly four-year university system by granting students degree credentials that the U.S. government and all federal contractors will henceforth recognize. Done. The end. The Academy will award the full and complete equivalent, whatever that means, of a bachelor's degree. So how about that? Everybody has to accept it, and it will be paid for by stealing the money of everybody else who already has it. Terrific.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
I like that smooth transition. So the American Academy will compete with all the universities that we just stole all the money from. A competition on an equal playing field. No problem. We can all get behind that. All right, sorry to cut into the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy so much. Apologies to you, Justice. Handing it over to you. We'll see you tomorrow.